Welcome to Northwestern News Report. I'm Tim Hackett.
And I'm Tim Hackett.
Well, he's Tim Hackett.
And I'm Tim Hackett. Thanks so much for being here with us this afternoon.
A story that's been developing for close to 7 years. WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange arrested in London and forcibly removed from the Ecuadorian embassy on a U.S. extradition warrant. Thomas Ilalole with more from London.
A police officer is out of a job 2 weeks after video of him shoving a man during an altercation went viral. We have more from our reporter, Luke Jones. No charges were filed in connection to the shoving incident. In the meantime, the Forest City police chief says Smith is appealing his firing.
Now to Louisiana. Law enforcement officials say the suspect in connection with 3 mysterious fires at historically black churches is in custody. Nadia Adams on the scene says the fires are being investigated as a hate crime. Oh, our hearts go out to all the victims and their families. Nadia, thank you. Coming up after the break, a massive winter storm has already ravaged parts of the Midwest, and you might be surprised by who's behind the picture of a black hole that went viral this week. That's after this.
Okay, many people have expressed concerns that Biden may be too old to hold the office. As anyone that you talked to said, Biden's age might be an issue.
After the moment of silence, the congregation will meet here on Deering Meadow to listen to a host of speakers, including a few students, as well as Northwestern President Morty Shapiro and Evanston Mayor Steve Haggerty. Vincent and Pitts has said one of the highlights of their trips out to Colorado was being able to meet some of the best players in the country and being able to play with them instead of against them. Week Purple Pantry congregates here in the basement of Shield Center to help accommodate low-income students, a program that continues even when school is not in session. Dunkin' or Starbucks. It's a hard choice to make, but one that students will have to if they want to get their daily caffeine fix.
All right, let's set the scene. Saturday night, under lights at Ryan Field, a historic rivalry renewed, high expectations and high stakes, and a pretty good game to boot. What are your main takeaways from Saturday's game? Chris, you got to be in New York City last week for the Big Ten tournament. That must have been pretty cool. What was your experience like? Before we get into that, let's control the controllables, as Pat Fitzgerald likes to say. This weekend, Northwestern heads out to Iowa City for a game with all kinds of Big Ten West implications. What can you tell us about the Iowa Hawkeyes? And do you realistically like Northwestern's chances on the road against another ranked team? Let's get down to business. Your squad kicked off its home schedule last month with the Remenyick Open at Ryan Fieldhouse. What was it like getting to compete in that brand new facility?
Welcome back to Sports Night. Hey, Tim, what do you call advanced stats in fencing?
No idea, Andrew. What do you call advanced stats in fencing?
Sabermetrics.
Oh, man. Well, I'm sure you wanted to throw in some more fencing puns in there, but I'm going to have to foil those plans. Let's talk some volleyball instead, please. Welcome back to Sports Night. Max, we're back on air.
Oh, shoot, my bad. I was working on my bracket.
Well, while you do that bracket, I'm going to talk about a team that'll actually make some noise in their bracket once May comes around. On to the second half now. Pete Nance comes up with a block, and the loose ball finds Vic Law. The rim tries to fight the Law, but the Law wins. And Northwestern would win the game 83-44. In set 2, Alford serving, but Northwestern plays it perfectly. Michelle Lee to Kiara McNulty to Aubriana Cannon for the kill, and the Cats level up the match. But how about the day for Sheila Nesselbush? Here she cycles behind the cage, crashes past 2 defenders, and beats Anna Tesserero down low for her second goal of the game. Cats down 6-3 at the half. 5th place out of 18 teams certainly isn't bad, but when you consider that of those 18 teams, 9 rank in the nation's top 20 and 6 in the top 10, that's a pretty great weekend in Hilton Head, South Carolina for Northwestern women's golf. Darius Rucker once told us to just let her cry, but there was no reason for Brooke Riley to cry at the prestigious Rucker Intercollegiate. Riley finished 4 over par to match the best score of her career and tied for the 6th best overall finish, which was the best placement of her career. Hannah Kim and Stephanie Lau also finished in the top 25 for the Cats in a field that featured 10 of the nation's top 20 players overall. Pardon the interruption, but ESPN is bringing its signature show of that name to Northwestern next Friday, November the 16th. As Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon will run a live showing of PTI here in Evanston. The occasion? Northwestern basketball hosting Binghamton and a matchup of the alma maters of the show's 2 hosts. And after PTI, Wilbon and Kornheiser will join play-by-play broadcaster Will Fleming to call the action between the Wildcats and the Bearcats on ESPN News. PTI tapes live at 3:15 and is open to anyone with a ticket to the game. Northwestern volleyball played its last match of the 2017 season on November the 24th, but if you thought the season was over for those players, think again. This past weekend, 3 Northwestern volleyballers journeyed out to Colorado with their sights set on a bigger goal, a roster spot on a National USA volleyball team. This week, Ryan Coleman and I headed over to Blomquist Gym to find out more. This weekend, nearly 230 college volleyball players enveloped Colorado Springs, Colorado for the 2018 U.S. Women's National Team Open Trial.
4 Northwestern players were selected by their coaches to participate. Senior setter Taylor Tashima, libero Lexi Pitsis, outside hitter Nia Robinson, and opposite Alana Walker, all rising sophomores. Walker was forced to miss the festivities due to an injury, but for her fellow first years, it's safe to say the weekend was a success.
It was a great experience. I would definitely give it a 10 out of 10. I had an amazing time.
Honestly, one of the best experiences I've ever had. I couldn't ask for anything more.
Robinson and Pitsis said one of the highlights of their trips out to Colorado was being able to meet some of the best players in the country and being able to play with them instead of against them.
Playing with them and becoming their friends was cooler in a sense because you learn their stats and you learn how they hit, but you never learned who they are as a person.
You could pass a ball that you would think in your head is oh, that's not a good ball, but then they make it look like a phenomenal ball.
But you don't have to be a top recruit, an All-American, or a national championship winner to take part in the tryout. In fact, plenty of lesser-known players have impressed in events past, and some have even gone on to make the national team.
I saw girls that I didn't even know existed, and they were phenomenal. So it was great getting that exposure and playing with different girls that hit different ways or pass different ways and kind of learning off of them and getting better with them.
Back in Evanston, it's back to business as usual as Pitsis and Robinson prep for 2018, where they will try to lead Northwestern to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2010.
Cats on 3, 1, 2, 3, cats.
If you're like me and you're anxious to find out if the Cats qualified for one of those 3 collegiate national teams or perhaps even the senior national team, you'll have to wait until official announcements later this month. 21-year-old Zachary Hall turned himself into the police Wednesday morning. He is one of 10 current and former LSU students that are implicated in the death of Maxwell Groover, an 18-year-old freshman from Georgia, in an incident at Phi Delta Theta fraternity last month. Hall and 8 other members of the frat are all facing misdemeanor hazing charges, but one member is being charged with negligent homicide. That member is 19-year-old Matthew Naquin, who witnesses have singled out as the chief aggressor. According to the police report, Naquin was, quote, aggressive and yelling at pledges to drink. Witnesses have said that Naquin appeared to single Groover out, and the pledge was, quote, made to take at least 10 to 12 pulls of hard liquor. This took place during a ritual called Bible study, where pledges were made to recite the Greek alphabet and answer trivia questions. Pledges who got answers wrong were forced to drink. Attorney Franz Borgart is trying to make clear that there's a difference between his client's case and Naquin's.
Hazing is not being charged with the murder or the death, and I think that's something that really needs to be kept in perspective is the individuals that are being charged with hazing are not being charged with his death.
Bail has been posted for the 10 charged individuals, while LSU's Phi Delta chapter has been shut down. For Medill, I'm Tim Hackett.
Allison. Who goes to Allison for dinner? We all go to Hinman.
That's the rule for Maddie Hertz and pretty much all the other residents of the Communications Residential College. Or at least it was, until Hinman Hall was shut down as part of Northwestern Residential Services' housing master plan at the end of last quarter. Now, for residents and students in the Southeast, the nearest dining hall options are Foster Walker or Allison, both of which are at least a 7-minute walk from the west doors of CRC.
We didn't feel that either of those 2 dining facilities were at their capacity. With all the students moving out of Hinman, there's a very limited, and Jones being closed, there's a very limited population of students in that space.
Even still, that limited population used the now closed dining hall as something of a rallying point. Hinman Hall had a seating area specially secured for CRC, still barely visible through the blinds concealing the vacant building.
That's probably how I met and became friends with the most people in CRC. Just, you go to Hinman and you sit at the same table. It was always kind of like a big family dinner.
Now that family atmosphere has to be driven across Sheridan Road and into Allison Hall.
We changed the naming on the private dining rooms at Allison to East and West, and we put the names of those communities on those doors so that they would feel welcome to go in there, be able to eat with a group still.
Fields says most building projects take between 2 and 2.5 years, and the Hinman project may take longer because of all the other construction projects the university has undertaken. Until it's finished, students will have to explore their campus to find some food, and that may require a bit of travel. For Northwestern News, I'm Tim Hackett. On February 14th, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School was transformed from this into this. Now,
Exactly a month after a group of 17 students in Parkland, Florida were killed, a group of students in Evanston, Illinois are inspired to create a transformation of their own.
It's pretty important to certainly the group of people who have been organizing it, but hopefully to the entire community that we recognize this sort of act is unacceptable. Gun violence in all forms is unacceptable.
In conjunction with a number of other schools nationwide, Cooper's group has orchestrated a school-wide walkout starting at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Students will meet at either Tech or The Rock, and then collectively march towards Deering Library. The group will then pause for a moment of silence at 10:17 a.m., a time deliberately chosen to memorialize the 17 lives lost last month.
After the moment of silence, the congregation will meet here on Deering Meadow to listen to a host of speakers, including a few students, as well as Northwestern President Morty Shapiro and Evanston Mayor Steve Hackett.
Cooper says he's already witnessed firsthand the impact that the mere concept of his group's event has already had. During one of their first planning sessions, they were visited by someone directly connected to Stoneman Douglas, who wanted to send a message of thanks.
At that meeting, she said, I just want to express how much it means to me that someone's doing something about this, that someone is speaking out for our community when we're hurting so much.
Cooper says he hopes that a couple hundred people show out for the event, but more important than the number of people present is the amount of impact registered. For Northwestern News, I'm Tim Hackett. It's all about getting pressure on the quarterback, and that's a really hard thing to do against Iowa because they're noted for having an excellent offensive line. They have in every year that Kirk Ferentz has been the head coach of the program. The best offensive line in the country last year, one of the best 2 years ago, but they're not quite as good as they usually are this year, and I think that presents an opportunity for Northwestern to get some pressure on Nate Stanley, try to get Akram Wadley in the backfield. It starts with a guy like Sam Duke-Miller, who has been a great edge rusher the last couple of weeks, and then a great run stuffer like Tyler Lancaster. I'm looking to those two guys to kind of key the defensive line play, and if Northwestern is able to contain Akram Wadley, I think Nate Stanley's going to have a little bit of a tough time. I think it's a huge win, Chris. Colorado, I think, is a really good team, made the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history last year. That was just the fourth year that the program even existed. They've got a lot of really good players on offense in Darby Kiernan and Miranda Stinson. You got to see them both excel earlier this afternoon. This is a really important win for the Wildcats in their first test against a decent team because, like you just saw over the weekend, Canisius and Detroit Mercy did not put up much of a fight. But at the end of the day, they've got 9 wins and a chance to make it 10. And I think that's the most important week in a football season is this next week, the bowl game. If Northwestern wins it, 10 wins, like I said, that cements what I think is a really successful season. If not, still a very good season. Ultimately, I think around where Northwestern would have expected, but a bowl game win would really cement what would be an excellent season for the Wildcats. Thanks for watching. So long.